Thank you very much for coming out on this relatively dry evening in Bergen. I'm so impressed to see so many people. This is, as I mentioned just now, it's really good. Only a year or so we had very few. In Stavanger, we've been trying to also increase the numbers, so to have 50 people and from quite a diverse and new faces is also really important. So thanks very much for coming. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes just talking about NOSP, but then I'm going to hand over to Knut, and I don't know where he is. Where's Knut? Oh, there you are. So just to talk a little bit about the cooperation that we've got for this evening, and then I'm just going to hand over to the guys that are going to take the presentations. So I just want to say thank you very much for coming out. I hope this is, I'm very excited about this evening. This wasn't, this is very little in the, I know we're here to essentially promote and talk about survey. I'm not sure that we'll have survey too much on the agenda, but we've talked to the presenters and they will try to gear it towards offshore in some way in various means. So very interesting presentations we've got tonight, and I'm looking forward to hearing it. So as ever, I'm Stuart Duncan. I'm from the NOSP, Norwegian Forum for Offshore Survey and Positioning. I still struggle to say that even after 5 years. These are the companies that are sponsoring us and are allowing us to rent the location tonight, provide the food. So take a good look at them. They're well known, and maybe some of the students here could end up working for some of them at a quite close time. So yeah, this evening is being run together with Knut and the guys from NOSP Petroleum Forening. So I thank them very much for the support that they've provided. This is the second time we've done this together, and hopefully it won't be the last. So Knut will explain a little bit about the NOSP Petroleum Forening shortly. So just want to mention a little bit about, for those that don't really know us, we are 5 people on the NOSP board. It's myself as the chairman. We've got Ricardo here, who's the treasurer, and John Derrick's not here, but Odd Knutsen. So we've got a good turnout actually from NOSP here tonight. We're actually only 2 normally here in Bergen, so to have 4 is good. These guys do a great job. If anyone was there for the annual dinner, you'll know how much effort that actually takes and how rewarding it is, because it's a very good evening. So I will come to mention a little bit about the annual dinner later. So dates for this year, this is the first one. So Happy New Year, everyone. We've got another lined up next month with Innova at their premises down in Bergen. Looking forward to that a lot. I was hoping that the guys from Argus were here tonight, but they're not, because I'm hoping that they'll put their name forward for the next one in May here in Bergen. I want to go down to their facilities and play with some ROVs. So let's see if we can pull that one off. I'm not convinced it'll happen, but we'll see how we get on. Then, of course, we've got the RTS Subsea Innovation Day down in Ukraine, and that's always a good event, usually up to 100 people. So if anyone can make that, that's always a good crack. And then we're back to Bergen for one last time, and then Stavanger, where we had a complete riot. I think that's the only way to describe it. Everyone just blew off a lot of steam in November, and it was a really, really good evening. So the bar is set quite high for this year. So we're going to try a new location, hopefully, and some new ideas for that event. But generally, a really good way to finish a year. So on that note, I'm going to pass over to Knut. So if Knut could just come over and say a few words about I mean, it's just what we try to do here is just help each other out, putting these evenings together, really support each other with the food and the location, and just putting together some presenters. So I think it's only fair that NOSP Petroleum Forening say a little as well. Knut.
Yeah. Thank you, Stuart. And thank you again for inviting us for sharing these events, because we have a lot in common. And it's all about promoting our business, and also to gather, discuss what we have in common interest, share challenges and opportunities, and learn more about each other and what we can achieve as a group within the offshore community. And that is what NPF represent. NPF Bergen is just a local entity of our Norwegian hub that is based in Oslo. But I think we are the biggest and the most active one by far, and probably thanks to Cecilia, our chairman, who is sitting over there. these events are extremely important to us, so that we have a lot of, if you can change the slide, there you go. The cooperation and collaboration. So what you see here is actually just, it's not sponsors. It's an overview of some companies that our members represent. So it's quite big, it's quite diverse, and for you students, it's a great opportunity to see the vast majority of different alternatives companies that you can join in this industry, just by being here, learning about them and what we can offer and provide. And a lot of when it comes to the offshore industry and what we will hear today about alternative energy, about carbon capture, about marine mining, our industry is part of the solution. Because we have the technology, we have the knowledge, we have the experience. So working within this business is really the future, if you are keen to be in the forefront of technology development and research and so on. So if you are curious about what NPF are, check our website or talk to us. We'll be more than happy to guide you. But now I'm not here to spend all night talking. There's other people that do. So thank you.
Thanks, Coot. That's good. Good introduction to NPF. I think let's take the opportunity to have a chat to the guys here. There are quite a few of them here, 2 of them based down on that first row. So I just wanted to say a little bit about the evening. I'm really excited about the presentations. It's different to what we would have normally done, but everyone's talking about offshore wind. There's a lot happening in offshore wind, and I think it's really good for not just us who've been in the industry for years, far too long in fact, but some of the new guys who are coming into the industry in the next year or so. They need to know exactly what's going on. You can read it in the press, but sometimes it's actually nice to just go to a presentation like this and become a little bit educated and find out some more. So I'm very enthusiastic and very pleased that we've got such a diverse set of presenters here. Foremost, I think actually, and no offense to the others, but Sølve, I'm very keen to hear what he has to say, especially for those living on the West Coast and what the future is for us on our doorstep. And I would just like to say a huge thank you to these guys. I did offer if they wanted to take these presentations in Norwegian, they were fully acceptable to do that, but they've all agreed to do it in English because I do know we have some international people or English speakers amongst us, including me. So on that note, I will pass you over to Sølve. Thank you very much, Sølve, for coming. I really appreciate that, and I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you a lot. I'm very glad to be here this evening. I come from the County Council, Vestland fylkeskommune. We are the democratic elected. I work for the administration in the Department for Business, Planning and Innovation. I am a section leader for a section called Green Infrastructure, Green Business Infrastructure. It's a merging of 2 sections a month ago, for the old one for climate and energy and the other one for value creation. So we have 26 people that are preparing policy for the politicians. We are doing some planning. We have a lot of arrange a lot of meeting, bring people together. We have the connection with Innovation Norway, SIVA, Næringshager, at funding centers, clusters, and a different cooperation agreement with the business in Vestland. First of all, we have 2 regional plans in my section. We are responsible going to tell you about a new plan for renewable energy that we're working on right now. It's on the public hearing. And in my section, we also have Invest in Bergen. We have Climate Partner Vestland. We have people working with zero emission transport and circular economy. Just a brief introduction. In Vestland County Council, we have the main goal for the County Council is that Vestland should be the leading county for value creation. And we also put climate and environment as a premise for development. It's two of our main goals. This development plan is the plan for all plan we are making in a period. And in the business development plan for the county council, we have 4 main initiatives. One is green business development. We want Vestland to work for zero emission in the industry. And we should use smart specialization as a method for innovation and business development. That means that the business that we already have in this region should be the ground, and we should build new industries on the experience and the business that already is there, and take over what we're good at, that bring us forward. We work for have enough space for new industry. We should have it in time and in the right places. We work for the skilled employees. We have the secondary schools. We have meetings and different forums with the universities and education centers in the county. We also have a project called Green Region Vestland. Sorry. There are 4 main must-win battles I want to present for you. One is that we should build a world-leading green hubs through industrial symbiosis. That's a different industry should take advantage of each other and use resources and waste for creating new industry. We want the industry to be clustered together. 2 is to take the position as the global leading ocean region. And 3 is to build innovative green infrastructure. If I should emphasize one thing there, that must be power, enough power to the right places in the right time. We have identified 250 industry projects in this region right now, and 83% of them need power. So if we don't get power to our industry, then we will succeed. And the 4th must-win battle is we must better at to cooperate and to speed up our processes, because maybe we don't have enough sense of urgency to do things fast enough. Then we lose ground to the other regions in Europe and the world. So. Okay. So. to doing that. And the rest of my presentation will be about the new regional plan for renewable energy. We are right now, it's a public hearing on a 12-year plan for the next 12 years. And as I said, that 83% of our 250 main industry projects in the county needs more power. So it's critical to get more power faster to succeed. Clean energy for all people to ensure reliable, sustainable and modern energy to a moderate price. That's the main goal for SDG goal number 7, clean energy to all. And I should do it very fast. This is only Norwegian, but I will say that the main 2 goals in the plan is to have a stable and to have a surplus of power in the power balance. We need to produce a little bit more power than we use. If we don't succeed in that, the power will be too expensive, and we will not have enough energy for the demand in the industry. And maybe the second most important thing is to have a power grid that can move power from where it is produced to where it's needed. And our region has 3 different price areas for power. We're the only region in Norway with 3 different power price areas. That's because the transition grid is not good enough. So if you take a little bit, I can say that maybe the power grid in Norway is mostly designed to bring power from all over Norway to the eastern part of Norway. It's a little bit, I'm not sure everybody will be perfect, but we need a better power grid inside the Vestland county. That's very important for us. And today we produce a little bit more than 50 TWh renewable energy in this county. And this plan is very ambitious. And it says that if we succeed in all different kinds of alternative energy, maybe we could produce nearly 30 TWh more in 12 years. That's very ambitious. But it's not impossible. I can take, if you take water power, that's maybe the most solid numbers. We could have 4 to 6 TWh new water power within 2035. Then today we produce 25% of the water power, hydropower in Norway, and national NVE says we could produce maybe 22 TWh more. That's not too ambitious policy, and we have about a quarter of it. And for solar energy, we set the ambition on producing 1 to 2 TWh within the end of the period. If we put solar power panels on every house and every building in Vestland County, on the southern side of the just south-facing roofs, and we must remove for pipes and ladders and so on, then you have 2.1 TWh solar energy. And then the technology is getting better and better. And in a few years, it will become mandatory to put solar panels on all new buildings more than 250 square meters. And in all, maybe 2029, and all residuals in every normal house. It's coming in all over Europe as part of the Fit for 55 package. And you have the use of thermic energy. That's not electrons, but it's energy in form of hot water. You have it on your, what you call heat power, varmepumpe, heat power. and you can have it in the ground. Bioenergy is right now also quite big source of energy, and we could increase that. Biogas is one kind, but you also have a normal wood. And maybe the most we don't ocean energy and different kinds of wave energy. Today, the technology is just almost moving, and it's not a solid, it's not a business case right at the moment. But if we're lucky, we have some companies that are working with that. So that's maybe the most difficult to give a good, what is it called, to say how much energy we can get from ocean energy in 2025. That's rather difficult. It can be nothing. It can be quite a good amount. But most important for you here this evening, I think, is the offshore wind. In the plan, we set the goal that the Vestland should have 5 to 10 terawatt hours bring into Vestland County. So that's new areas in addition to Utsira and Sørlige Nordsjø. In amount, that's about, it's a little bit more than 2 times Trollvind project. Trollvind is 4.3 TWh. So we guess that we will get Trollvind, and we guess that maybe a similar size project and a little bit more. But that's, we don't know if it's the government gives okay, but we hope so. And the politicians in Vestland, they are working for it. They said we want areas for offshore wind outside Vestland County. Am I running out of time or no? And we have onshore wind. It's more, it's not popular among everyone, but I think it's increasing in numbers. Maybe the people are accepting it a little bit more when the prices on energy are high. And we also have, we think we will get some more onshore wind projects in this area. We say from 0.5 to 3.4 TWh. That's about the maximum. It's about double what we have right now. And a part of the plan is also energy carriers like batteries and hydrogen. I think hydrogen is a very interesting for Vestland. We can get both green energy and blue energy. Blue hydrogen. So it can be a very big industry if we're lucky. In maybe a few years, we see the first project right now, and we hope it will be, we see a lot more. And another theme in the plan is to have skilled workforce, to have skilled people to work with energy, to work with the universities, the secondary schools, the forskningscentra. But maybe the main, if I say one thing about the plan, is that it's not only one solution, but we need all solutions, and we need more of everything to succeed. It's not enough just to do one thing, but we have to take the whole package and work with all kind of energy. And offshore wind is maybe the biggest potential for Vestland, we say in the plan. So that's the most important part of the plan, is maybe the offshore wind in numbers. So it's critical for us to have offshore wind projects in Vestland County in the next decade to come. I also mentioned the power grid, that nearly as important as to produce more energy, it's important to have a better power grid in the county region. In the Bergen area, the energy demand maybe the next 10 years will actually double. Sounds a lot, but it's a good thing. Industry want to build new business, but it's very critical to have a better grid. We also mentioned nuclear energy. We don't say yes, we don't say no, but we should follow the development. It might be what do you call it, a joker, might be a next big thing, but realistic, we don't think we will have nuclear energy in Vestland the next 12 years. But maybe later. But right up to now, there's no projects have been have asked for permissions for the national energy authorities, but it might happen. There are people here in Vestland that are working for it, but just now it's just 3 people in the company, so it's a little bit long term, but it might happen. And also in the plan are 38 what do you call it, retningslinjer requirements for planning. And this is a regional plan. It should also should be the retningslinjer that also the municipalities and the state are going to follow. I have to do a little, I think maybe time, and then what time is it? Running out of time, more or less? Yeah. Then I think it's also the balance between we need a lot of new energy, but we can't do it on too much. We have value in nature, landscape, culture, and tourism. So you need to find the balance, and that's the most tricky part. But the best project is the project that have not too big disadvantages for other interests. Maybe you need to accept you have some disadvantages, but you have to find the best projects. And my last slide will be, you can take a picture in the code. If you're interested, then you can go to the plan, and I will recommend also the background fact report. It's rather good if you want to read about what we think about renewable energy, and they've been fact-checked by the universities and a lot of people, and they say that's good stuff. The plan itself, it's 25 to 30 pages, but I think maybe a lot of you will find maybe the background report maybe most interesting. And if you have something to say to the county council, the regional plan is right now on a hearing. You and every other can say what you want, and you can maybe change the plan a little bit if you think some smart stuff we don't have thought about. So you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sölva. I thought that was very interesting, enlightening for all of us who live here, maybe also enlightening for those who are just visiting. But you said that quite disturbing. I thought you can expect, and I think if anyone wants to ask any questions, I can get carried away here and forget you're all here. So just you can ask questions in Norwegian or English, of course. You said that energy consumption was going to double in the next few years. If we stay on the same trajectory that we are currently, will we be running out of, will we have to ration our electricity use, or is this fundamentally important for us on Vestland?
I think if we get problems, you will first get them a few days in the year, maybe on winter days. And you have some industry have contracts that you're not guaranteed to have energy all the time. You have to accept a contract that you can be cut off maybe in a few hours. The most difficult situation will be if one power grid one power line is down, and then the other one can't bring enough energy to the area. But the demand, especially in the Bergen area, especially the Bergen of the ring, Bergen Ytre Ring, Øygarden Mongstad is maybe the most critical one. So to bring new energy into that area will be very important. That's one of the reasons that we are big fan of offshore wind projects. It's very critical to bring more energy in the Bergen, the Kollsnes Mongstad power grid area.
So it doesn't sound like we have any choice. We have to do this. Is that fair to say? We have to approach it from lots of different angles and.
Yeah. If it don't produce more renewable energy, then we will not succeed in the climate goals. We will not succeed in bringing new business, the industry that Norway should have export income and people should work in for the next decades.
Yeah.
So it will be going down if it don't succeed in bringing more energy to the energy.
Which basically translates to job security for lots of people in this room and probably people who are just about to start working inside energy. So what about, I mean, you mentioned that offshore wind is quite important for a lot of people in this room. I've worked on the high wind Tampen, and we're currently bidding to do the work on certainly the company I work for, if we get through bankruptcy. If we with that project, how important is wind to play in this? Because it's an interesting field and it's a growing field, and it's obviously one that does contribute here.
To be honest, I don't see how we could get the energy to, what do you call it? We will not succeed if we don't get offshore wind and troll wind to Vestland.
Yeah.
If there's
it's that important.
So
basically.
that's the reason that our politicians said that we need areas for offshore wind outside the Vestland. So if then we have to, then you lose industry, you lose on your climate emissions. So and then we get higher prices for all people.
I've got one more question, and I do remember that you are here. One question I had was, I thought that almost 100% of energy on the West Coast was from renewable anyway. If you increase that, how much of this is not just to keep the lights on here, but also to export to put money in the pocket of the state as well?
It's a good question. Right now, I can say that energy use in Vestland, we use actually about 30 TWh fossil energy, and we produce a little bit more than 40 TWh renewable energy. So, but the electricity is almost all renewable. But if you talk energy use all in all, it's quite a big share of fossil energy. We, as a country, export more electricity out of the region than the next region in Norway produce, all in all. So right now it's going about 15 to 70%, 15 to 17 TWh is going out of Vestland. That's a little bit less than a half. So of course, if you see a Vestland as a whole, if we cut the cables to the eastern part of Norway and use all the energy here, we will have enough energy. But I think it's a difficult solution.
Okay, well, it sounds like we're going to be putting cables in the ground anyway, which is great. So, do you want to? This is just the Stuart Sullivan show. So, yeah, Odd.
Yeah, Odd Knudsen from UTIC Survey. I mean, part of this had to also be that they have a reduction in the energy consumption for each kind of say householding and industry.
Mm-hmm.
So what kinds of incentives did you have for installation of heat pumps or solar panels on houses? Do we get any refund if you do that, or?
To be honest, we as a county council, we don't have that money, but we asked the government to use money on it. And I think it will be wise. Right now, the houses in Norway pays in more in fee for electricity to Enova than the houses are getting back. Actually, they get back just a quarter or half of what the houses pay. on their energy bills. So it should be a fair share to increase support for heat pumps, solar panels, and so on the houses. I think it also be wise to be popular. And if you study the Energy Commission yesterday, say that Norway have a potential to spare 20 TWh on energy efficiency, and they recommend that to houses and industry that Enova should increase and should part of the Enova project. Introduction to Enova should be that should pay more to houses and industry to cut energy. So of course that's maybe the easiest. You need both new energy, and you have to use the energy more efficient.
You have to come at it from both angles. So I got one last question, and then we'll move on. Hello.
Hello, my name is Hugh Rosheim. Interesting plan, ambitious, but you have only 2 lines covering nuclear power. And with a plan 12 years ahead, I think you need to put one of your 26 people to look more detailed.
Yeah.
It's an initiative actually started in this city. And I think this will grow when it comes to people now accepting that we may have to have nuclear power. It's now more than 50% of the population. So things that happen in the world influence on your decisions and your planning. So,
I had 2 lines in my presentation. In the plan, it's a little bit more, but not much. There's a small page, and but in the background report, we have a little bit more. But I think what you read there will be quite positive for. But we can't. If it is not, we can't put it in the plan right now because we don't have any concrete projects or. Vi har ikke noen konkrete søknader, det er ingen som har søkt, men kanskje det blir viktig. Men vi er relativt positive, og mer enn staten.
Okay, I think the Germans are regretting their decision to close their or not go ahead with their nuclear power. So thank you very much, Sølve. That was really interesting. Just a little thank you from NOSP, a bottle. Okay, right, well, on that a moment, we're a little bit behind schedule, but okay, doesn't matter. Magnus from Wilhelmsen New Energy, very excited to hear what you've got to say about what the plans are for your company. And yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me to come and talk about something that I'm really passionate about. And when Cecilia asked, it was not very difficult to convince me to come and present. I spent 10 years plus as responsible for the group strategy for Wilhelmsen. Now I work in the new energy division, and it's a direct result of that strategy. That strategy was to do good, do actual impact good, and not only do buy certificates or other ways just to satisfy the targets we're supposed to deliver on. So thank you. And first of all, I think many of you know Wilhelmsen as a ship owner. And it used to be true, but at the moment we don't own any vessels. We are a maritime service company, global company with a global presence, providing services to the maritime industry, and we also own quite a lot of infrastructure in the North Sea region. But I think that's important to understand that for those of you who know Norwegian, G35, the brown cheese, you see the vessels, it's car-ro vessels, they carry cars around. Yes, we own part of that company, 38%, but that's a separate company called Wallenius Wilhelmsen, listed on the Oslo Stock Exchange, just to put the stage right. So we have 3 divisions. I will not spend any time on the others, only the new energy. It's a portfolio of companies working within the energy transition space, and we do not focus on ownership or percentages. We focus on the cluster and how they as a network can work together throughout the industries they are involved in, and try to be a spider web where we can create new value chains within many different areas of the opportunities that come around decarb shipping, zero emission shipping, renewable energy, and these areas. This is when we make a picture of how we look at ourselves on this network. This is what it looks like. So when you're going to have the offshore turbines, you need a support industry around it. You need the vessels to go out with the people, engineers that are going to service them. And you also need companies that can do the inspection and follow the cables and the subsea structures. Hence, we have EDA for the people and the engineers going out for the turbines. We have REACH that can do the inspection of the cables and the subsea installations. These companies are coming from the energy transition as well, because they used to follow, except for EDA, purposely built. They're coming from the oil and gas industry, doing the transition, moving into what's coming offshore Norway. We also have quite a lot of infrastructure along the Norwegian coast with NOSP Group, and companies there that we use technology and competence and how we can make things cheaper, how we can create new solutions to actually afford this fuel, this new energy that we're going to use, because it is more expensive to build a turbine offshore than on the land, and it is more expensive than a water turbine for hydro. So we need to use technology, we need to use our competence, our assets, to be able to afford this new world we're moving into. And this picture shows us, show how we look at it, how we invest, and how we play these companies together to in a web where we can create new solutions and achieve our strategy as a group for Wilhelmsen. So I'm not going to talk so much about all the other areas, because today we'll focus on offshore wind. And what we're seeing is that the infrastructure that we have today along the Norwegian coast, we have 11 supply bases. I think we have 3 kilometers of quayside. For those of you who have a cabin, 3 kilometers quayside is quite a lot. It's actually the biggest private port company in Europe. And how can this company that's built around the oil and gas industry, how is this company going to survive in the future? So when we became a shareholder in 2012, we immediately said, this is not going to continue forever. We need to find new industries. We need to find new ways for this company to survive. And of course, we got an extension with new fields being developed. We got the new package during COVID. So we got the life extension for our infrastructure, which is good. We're going to make some money, but we're using that cash flow to invest into the new areas for the Wilhelmsen New Energy business. So what we did with the strategy is that with this background that I painted, we said, okay, what are these new opportunities? And it's important for me to emphasize opportunities, because you could look at the SDGs and UN sustainability goals and say it's a threat. For us, we said, let's look at it as an opportunity. And where do we have a right to play? We as Wilhelmsen, with this global network, where do we have a right to play? And which was quite unique was that we saw that within all these categories, supported by the Norwegian government and public sources, this is happening now for once right in our backyard, which is quite unique. So we said, okay, this we can start in Norway. We're a Norwegian company. Let's do it here. And when it works here, we can go abroad. So we said, okay, offshore wind. Yeah, definitely we have a right to play. It's our knowledge. It's moving offshore. It's maritime. It's logistics. It's complicated. It's assets. All of these things we know from being a ship owner for 160 years. So we can play in all the parts of the value chain for offshore wind. We can own, develop parks. We can do maintenance and service of this installation, and we can do the vessels, and we can do the competence around maintaining these companies as well. No, these assets as well, sorry. Solar, we said, nah, not for us. We don't know anything about it. It's not moving offshore yet, even though we have some floating on some lakes. Hydro, some municipal companies took this a long time ago. It's not for us. And then we said decarb shipping, definitely. This is important for us. We want to move towards a zero emissions world. And then we also need to do it in our competence area, which is vessels. And then you need the fuel, you need the ports, you need develop the logistics chains around zero emission shipping. I could talk on this for 2 hours, but I'm not going to touch any more on that than that. The last one we said is subsea mining. It's a little bit controversial, but if we're going to have batteries, if we're going to have fuel cells, we're going to need cables for these offshore wind. Then you need to find this. And if you're not going to lean on China, you need to get control of this. This is why we invested in a company that has technology within subsea mining. I find it really exciting. And if you, the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act from the US, direct result of this, EU coming out 2 days ago, yesterday, coming out with their act, direct result of getting control of the raw materials, because we need to be independent and we need to do something about the value chains there. Because even though you buy a clean Tesla, let me promise you, it's not clean behind the factory when you include the mine and the processing and what's going on there. You need to be responsible. And Norway is actually opening up for licenses for subsea mining. I think license applications this year, potential award next year. And if you thought that we kind of hit the jackpot with oil and gas and hydro and these other things, we have the second largest resources for minerals subsea is right outside our coastline. So this is coming. This is the next thing after offshore wind. But today, offshore wind is the focus. And for those of you that are a little bit new to this, we're talking about huge structures. And these structures are going to be produced, manufactured, put together, and transported to the location they're going to be put up in scale. I mean, a floating structure, anyone of you know how big 15, 18, 20 megawatt turbine floating structure is like? But it's 100 by 100 meters approximately. And you need, these are just the demand in Europe, both bottom fixed and floating. But if you're going to achieve the goal for Norway, you need 100 of these per year for the next 20 to 30 years. And if you say that that's basically an oil platform that we used to produce one, now you need to produce 100. It's a task that is huge. We need to solve it. And if you then go and look at all the components that's going into it, we're talking about blades that are 100 meters plus a piece. You're talking about nacelles, the top piece of the turbine, which is 600, 700, 800 tons that you're going to put on top of a 100, 150 meter structure. And this at scale, how are you going to do the logistics around it? How are you going to transport it? How are you going to put it together? These are huge opportunities for Norway to come. And if we don't wake up, this is going to happen somewhere else. So this is what the market looks like today. Looks like Norway is really small, and UK is really far ahead because they did ScotWind and the other awards around Scotland and the UK sector. But if you look at what's coming in Norway, the Norwegian column is going to be like the UK column. Now we're being awarded, 3 to 4.5 gigawatts on Utsira and SN2. A little bit discussing if SN2 is 1 or 1.5 or 3. Last night I heard 3. At least that's what they're talking about. But let's say that this demand for installation that you see in UK in 10 years is definitely going to be in Norway. So we have the unique opportunity now that we see a market coming. We see an opportunity. We need to grasp it, but we need to make sure that we actually develop something in Norway to maintain the value in Norway. This is what it looks like, the cake that's going to be split for offshore turbines, and if you're going to put up an offshore turbine today. I know if you did Hywind Tampen, it's a little bit different, but we expect the cost to come down, particularly around substructures. But if you look at the turbine market, there's no position for Norway to take in the turbine market. You have the 3 OEMs, they basically got the market. That's left in Denmark. The development, yeah, you have some engineers at the moment. We don't have so many engineers with competence on this in Norway. We have a few, but we need to get more engineers that can work with this. If not, the 5% on development is happening somewhere else. So if you're an engineer trying to think of what you're going to do, focus on offshore wind, you're definitely going to have a job. Substructures, I'll get back to that. Electrical and infrastructure, yes, it's going to be some there for Norway, and but most cables, etc., are produced outside. So we need to play a position within the cable and the electrical infrastructure. We have the competence there, we can deliver, but we actually need to now move forward and see that we need to use this expertise within offshore wind. Assembly and installation, yeah, there we get some. And the same with the port and staging. But if we're not awake now, we will end up with the same with the Shell turbine outside Karmøy. They left this much money in Norway. They did leave some money for some electrical cable, but in the big picture, everything was put together in Esbjerg in Denmark, hauled up here, preset anchors, and just hooked it up. We got nothing. So all the companies, all you students, you really need to now say that, yeah, I'm going to be here, I'm going to play a part in this. If not, Norway is just going to be in a long-term bond where we just clip the coupon for tax money and some trading of electricity. And that's why I'm really, really passionate about is the substructures. That's where Norway really has a role to play. Because so far, it's been bottom-fixed structures. Okay, so then you get the transition piece, the towers, the jacket or the monopole, and the turbine. All of those is basically going to be produced outside Norway. But what competence do we have in Norway that we actually can bring into this, which is new? It's floating structures in harsh environments. You guys working in oil and gas, you know this better than anyone else. So why not use this competence? But we need to use it differently. We need to then go from one structure at a time, everyone being different, and bring this into making serious productions of floating structures. And what we're best at, that is concrete. Norway has a unique position. We have the rock, we have the facilities. We are looking at the facility in Jelsa, coming from the eastern part of Norway. I would say that this is right back your backyard, but also you from Bergen probably say it's not because it is Saudal and it's closer to Stavanger. But we're looking at there, together with Norsk Stein and Implenia, to put up a facility that can make floating substructures in series for a total of around 100 per year, so 1 gigawatt in capacity from substructures. That is competence that we bring to Norway. That is competence that will create jobs in Norway. I think direct jobs from this facility in Jelsa, as we call it, is 3,000 direct jobs at the premises. And if you include the area around, and you're probably at a number between 6,000 and 7,000 jobs in Jelsa in Sauda, a county which today has some 3,000 inhabitants. These structures, if we manage to do this, we can export from Norway, we can export to the UK, we can do the whole assembly at one site, we can put the tower on the substructure, we can put the nacelle and the blades and everything, wait for the weather window and just haul it out to where it's going to be. This is not unique, but that's how all companies within oil and gas with the unique competence we have need to look at this. And that's why we, coming from oil and gas, say that our competence is not necessarily doing the assembly, but or doing the concrete structures, but our competence is making handelsparker, as we call it in Norwegian, for bring industry clusters, bringing the industry together, making the infrastructure, and inviting the players in the industry in and let them work together in our supply base along the coast. And it's nothing different here. We're just making one for the offshore wind. So within Wilhelmsen New Energy, we're trying to tie together this competence that we have in our group. And we said, use it within offshore wind, we use the infrastructure we have, and we use our technology and our decarb, because if we're going to build something which is zero emission, we really need to then take the carbon out of the value chain for that as well. It doesn't matter if you're going to produce clean energy, if you're running a vessel back and forth on MGO. You have to have clean fuel doing that. If not, you're not making the world a better place. So it has to be in every single step. And we're using these 3 pillars, our 60 years of experience, our knowledge and legacy for entrepreneurship, to develop new concepts, new ideas, and create new business opportunities for Wilhelmsen as the future. Because, as we say, the S and the sustainability and the ESG means making money. Because if we're not making money, we can't afford to do this over time. And I think that's important for all. You do good does not mean that it's not allowed to make money. You have to make money. If not, someone is higher up in the food chain is going to tell you after a while that you're off. So this is nothing new. We've done this in Denmark within offshore wind in Esbjerg. We have a supply base in Denmark. We've been handling the logistics around offshore wind for many years because, as you know, Denmark's production has gone like this, and now it's just this much left. So we had to use our infrastructure for something different. So and then we're not only playing with our infrastructure, we're also using this competence into new areas. And some of you might have read the Norwegian speakers, might have read the Finansavisen today. So today, our new partner joined our consortium, where we're going to apply for license for Utsira development, which is CIP. Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners came to us and wanted to join our consortium. They only have like 19 billion euros under management. So I think they'll be a good partner strengthening our consortium, and maybe the government like our strengthened balance sheet as well. Also, we have invested in competence. We did the energy innovation in Egersund. This is to develop and build competence centers and train people with education for doing maintenance of offshore wind. Climbers, engineers, these type of things. It's really popular, and it's one of the few places that you're actually building competence within the offshore wind space today. Last slide. Hence, we look at the whole value chain as a company. Doesn't mean that we're going to be in all the parts of the value chain in the future, but it is really important for us to build all the steps in the value chain and participate there today, because these value chains don't exist in Norway today. It does not exist. You don't have, to a large extent, competence within offshore wind development. You definitely don't have assembly places for making those 100 installations per year that we're going to see in Norway. And you don't have a lot of companies that have extensive experience within the offshore wind, within logistics, and how you handle logistics around it, and also operation and maintenance of the parks. All of these areas we need you students, we need all the companies here today to start looking at this in the part of the energy transition and say, my competence is valid within the offshore wind space. And decommissioning, that's interesting, but that's in another 25 years. So let's not spend any time on that at the moment. So thank you very much. That was my presentation.
Thank you, Magnus. That was really fascinating and quite passionate as well, which is always good. So rather than me ask any questions, I wanted to see if there's anyone from here, because there must be a few based on what he said there. There's lots of opportunities for students here. I think you're practically falling over yourself, basically. But what is the first thing that you guys are vessel based? But there's lots of opportunities here. But what is the first one for you guys? Where is the first kind of step on the ladder for you? I mean, you can't do it all at the same time. But what is the first approach that you can see to get your foot in the door? Because you've obviously thought about this. So what are you going to have to do first?
Well, from an industry perspective, Windworks Jelsa is the first step that we need to make. That is a pragmatic place. So it's not dependent on us applying or winning a license at Utsira or SN2. This is for anyone who'd like to come and make a contract for floating substructures. Call us and we can talk about it. Because we need to do that, and that is more important for me personally than and also the whole new energy segment in Wilhelmsen than winning a license at SN2 or Utsira. Even though I really would like to win one of the licenses, this is more industry and it's more important. It's long term.
So is Jesla already established? Are you just waiting? Is that the case? Sorry if I've misunderstood that.
No, it's a quarry today.
Yeah.
But we have the plans, we have the drawings, we have the local municipalities with us. And we will make the investment and finalize it if someone were to come and say, I'll sign a contract, and particularly a longer term contract, then that's something we're looking for. We need someone to make the first step.
That sounds like a chicken and egg situation there, basically.
But we're
chicken.
We're moving ahead,
Okay.
even though we're not waiting for it, but we're not going to make the huge investment, finalizing it before we know someone wanted to use it.
Okay. All right. Well, we've had Reach on the list here before. I can see that you're also associated that. So you've really thought this through. How many years did it take you to come up with this plan, or this has been a long time in the?
We started 2012 analyzing the market, and then we really made this like hard strategy on this 2018, and then we built this portfolio over the last 2 to 3 years.
Good job. Okay. Any questions at all? Oh, I got one. Excellent. Hang on.
Hi there, Chris from UTech. The Windworks Elsa, how big is that site going to need to be to house a decent number of floating substructures?
How many square meters?
Yeah.
I can't answer. I've been there a couple of times, but the area is just huge.
Yeah. So you'd look to house a fair number of them pre-made, ready to install.
Yeah, you will build there, I think, 80 to 100 substructures per year.
Okay.
And I think I've seen drawings where there's like 60 to 70 onshore at the same time. So we're talking about quite a huge area, yes. And what's unique about it is 100 meters draft right off the quay, and it will be built on the bedrock. So there won't be any weight limitations. And we're talking about structures that I think one of these floating substructures will have a weight around 12,000 tons. So it's not something you just easily move around.
Well, I assume because with Hywind Tampen, that's built just outside Mongstad, and that would be too restrictive for the likes of Trollvind. So this would be perfectly suited for the Trollvind, for example.
Yeah, you could use Trollvind. You could do spars there.
Yeah.
With the draft, and you can do the assembly right off the quay and put the turbines with the towers just straight on the substructure off the quay.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Anyone? We're going to have a break, so I think everyone's probably about ready for that. 15 minutes, and then we'll come back. And thanks very much. Thank you very much, Magnus.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I can start presenting myself. I'm Arvid Nesse. I'm leading the Met Center and the Norwegian Offshore Wind cluster. And Met Center and the Norwegian Offshore Wind is two brands, but it's one business registration number. So it's mixed together. So it's sort of a test center within the cluster. And we start now with this picture here. It's taken from the test center, a nice day in June last year. It's not the normal weather outside Karmøy, but very, very nice. We had now 2 turbines there. And until Hywind Tampen started, this was the only offshore wind turbines in Norway up to now. I'm getting back to the story about the test center. But I'm starting now with the cluster, an industry cluster, 365 members from all over Norway, from all over the supply chain, some international members, but most of them are Norwegian members and the members from Equinor and 2 startups with one person startups. But the majority of members here are specialist companies coming from maritime and oil and gas. That's the majority of members. It's company that sees that, okay, they have the business going, oil and gas is going to have a lower activity sometimes in the future. They need to have more legs to stand on. That's and we have been very also curious about what happened now with all these companies when we have more activities in oil and gas again. Will there still be interest for offshore wind in Norway? But we cannot see any change in the interest for what we are doing, our events and like that. There's still a very high interest for offshore wind in Norway. The cluster has a vision to establish world-leading supply chains for floating wind. We are also working in bottom fixed, but we see that floating wind is a sort of a second chance for Norwegian companies. Bottom fixed started in early 2000 to 2005 in Denmark. A lot of Danish companies and Dutch companies involved. And we will see that the companies involved from the starting point is still the strong players in that business. The Norwegian market share in bottom fixed is only 4%. But we will have a second chance now because floating wind is starting now. The Hywind Equinor technology was the world's first floating turbine. So, and we see that the markets is big. Magnus before me told a bit about the market, so I don't think I'm going into that now. It's a lot of turbines upcoming, and actually EU has offshore wind as their main tool to get the vision about zero emission in 2050. But to obtain the goal of world-leading supply chains in floating wind, we have defined 3 strategic working areas or must-win battles. It's the home market and supply and forming the supply chain. We need to be a first mover in floating wind. The second one is innovation to get down the cost and have the best solution. And the third is export development, to be present in the export markets and all these 3 is necessary to obtain the goal with world-leading supply chains. So I'm going into these 3 now, starting with the home market. We have now 2 areas, Utsira Nord, floating, Southern North Sea, bottom fixed, most likely. We also have Trollvind, but that's not on any official list now. But it's a proposal from Equinor. But of course, we hope that Trollvind will come because the earlier, the better. and the more the better to form this industry. And we see that there are projects now upcoming very fast in Scotland, France, Spain, Portugal, United States, Japan, Korea. So there is a lot of competition now. But being an early mover is important. Being the first one to build full-scale wind farms, then to form the supply chain. And when forming the supply chain, the lessons learned from bottom fixed is that the companies started from the beginning are still the dominating companies here. But there is a lot of interest now in this Utsira Nord and Southern North Sea. Here are some of the consortiums, and now Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners also is involved. All the red ones are part of our cluster, and also a developers forum inside our cluster where the developers now can collaborate on not items where they are not competitors. And also, we had on a cluster meeting last week, we had the State Secretary who told us about what's happening now. And the State Secretary promised that within March, these areas will be announced, and during the year, they will be awarded too. And in Southern North Sea, one area, 1,500 megawatt, Utsira Nord, most likely 3 areas, each 500 megawatt to the developers. But what's also important is the next step, because now in May, the Prime Minister announced a goal for Norway, 30 gigawatt. And that's quite a high amount of energy production. It's close to our annual production of water hydropower today. And this, from 2010, there was a process mapping areas for building offshore wind in Norway. Most of these are bottom fixed. You see there are 15 areas all along the coastline. Utsira Nord and Southern North Sea now are results from that mapping in 2010. But the technology development with more floating makes it necessary now to do a new mapping of areas in Norway. And there's a process ongoing now, led by the Norwegian Energy and Resource Directorate. Will be published a report during April. And we also do, and after that, there will be a hearing. We expect that at least maybe up to a lot of this will be floating now. It's much easier to find areas with less level of conflicts when you go to floating. Because the conflicts with the fishery, for example, is on the banks where it's more shallow water. So, and we in the cluster also, with some of our partners, we are doing also a mapping to have a sort of information tool to also go into the debate about where the next wind farms should be. Going into the innovation part, the test center is an important for us. The MET Center was established with a Hywind demo back in 2009, and world's first floating turbine. At that moment, everybody expected that there should be a rush of floating turbines coming, but they were very early in Equinor, and it was a lot of years before the next came. First in Portugal, and also one in France, but not. Even today, there are not many floating turbines in sea, but we see that the interest now has exploded and there are a lot of activities going in the development. The next one we had at the test center was this. It's a bit curious. It was a kite turbine from Google development, Makani, but they stopped the development. Kite. Tetraspar, owned by Shell, RWE, and Japanese TEPCO, was the next one, installed in 2021. Has been in operation now for more than 1 year. And it's correct that the main installation was done in Denmark, but even then, more than 30 Norwegian companies were involved. And we have a goal here to involve as many Norwegian companies as possible. But of course, it's the investors which make the decisions here. The next one to be installed in the MET Center will be Seatwell, a Swedish vertical axis turbine. Very interesting to see that also some out-of-the-box thinking here now. This is it's a Sparboy with a vertical axis turbine, 1 megawatt, to be installed close to the ferry in Arsvågen. Also, this one in concrete is planned to be now installed in 2025. Flagship with financing from EU and with Spanish Iberdrola as a leading partner. So now we see here it's the setup of our Met Center. There are now seven consents outside Karmøy. There are 1 in the fjord, or 2 in the fjord there, and 1 with Egersund, Flex Power. So I think we will during 2025, we expect to see about 10 turbines installed here. Now, different technologies, all of this. And we don't know who will be the winners in the future, but we want to be be connected to this, and the future will show who the winners are. And also, here are some of the technologies which are contracted. The X and Y are also contracted, but we are not able to tell about them yet. And we also have a queue, a list of 8, 9 projects which have asked us for a test location. So we are looking into how we can expand here now. What's interesting in technology, we did a mapping of floating technologies. We had a master student last summer which did a mapping. I think we have mapped 83 different technologies on different TRL levels and different technologies. But we also grouped them into type of technology, but also the countries which are they originated from. And what's interesting to see is that 16 of these 83 was Norwegian. And that says something about also Norwegian companies are very innovative. 16 technologies. The next was US with 11, Spain 10, France 8, Netherlands 7, Japan 6, and etc. So, and of course, the future will show here now the winners. Here are some of the Norwegian. I'm not going into details about this. But maybe stop with this last one, because this wind catching system it's funded by FERM. It's also very innovative. This wall of small turbines, very different thinking from the traditional, where it's a land turbine with a floater. So and also this one is interesting from Rosenberg, where you have an installation with many turbines on the same foundation. So, but also with the test center, we have a possibility to also do R&D about fishery, how it influences fish, the birds, and like that. And that is also in our consent conditions. It's said something we need to get knowledge now about floating wind. We have a lot of knowledge from Denmark, Germany, UK about bottom fixed, but we need to have more knowledge about floating wind, and we will do that. And one example now, what we are doing here is bird monitoring. We are collaborating with a Norwegian startup which has developed a camera system, and this camera was installed with this. This is one of the turbines at the test center. It's not in operation there, but it's here we can see how it detects a bird coming in. It's metering the distance, the height, etc., and it will also detect if it's hidden by the turbine. Now it has been in operation for more than 1 year. We have detected about 20,000 birds out there, and no hits. That's interesting. So I think we will have published some news about that very soon, because it's interesting to see, because there are a lot of worries about the birds and that. And of course, birds have been hit by turbines. But that is one example where we have some knowledge now assembled. And we're also involved in some research activities about that. I don't think I go into this. The third leg we are standing on is the export development. And we are doing a lot of now visits to markets. And we are now looking into, especially, we have an A and B listing of countries, and we have a special focus on the countries where floating is now upcoming, because we can build a huge export industry of floating wind from Norway. It's competency, but it's also turbines. The A countries they are closest to us geographically and cultural, and they are all with floating wind projects. And the B countries, we're also working with that, but not the same level of efforts. But going into this export industry, here's an example from Jelsa, as Magnus mentioned, where we can showing that we can build an export industry. Because what you need for building floating turbines, you need deep water, you need a sheltered area, deep water, space on land, space in sea to have them stored during the winter, and you can produce all year. So bottom fixed is installed at you do the most of the operation at the farm, wind farm, but and then you need it's a summer activity. For bottom fixed, for floating, you can do the production and produce them in the site and tow them out in the summer and hook up with anchors and the cable. And actually, we are now in the cluster. We have 6 projects. Jelsa is one of them, but from Mandal to Nesna in Helgeland, there are 6 now sites under development. And what we are telling them is that you should collaborate, and I think they see that, because when floating now is upcoming, there will be a lack of this type of facilities. And the Norwegian fjords is very unique here. If we are going to UK, Ireland, France, there's a lack of this type of areas where you have both deep water and you have a lot of space available. And we can build an export industry. And this shows also that within 10 days towing time, you can go to Spain. And I think 10 days towing is most likely a low part of the cost for a turbine or to 700 million NOK. So it's most important with the cost there is to have an efficient building process. And also, if you're looking to Scotland, 10 floating projects upcoming. They are very close to us, and there is a lack of port capacity in Scotland if they are upcoming at the same time. We can also see that, seen from the perspective now with the Met Center. Met Center will be a place where you have the testing on one, you have the experience on one, and do the optimization of each technology before you go into the full scale Utsira Nord, have the industrialization and building the supply chain, and then you can go in an export industry. I can also mention that as a part of this, we are having now an offshore wind pavilion at North Shipping this year, which are available. And we can also mention floating wind days now in Haugesund. We are building up an international conference in Haugesund about floating wind. We started now 2 years ago. Last year there were 300 participants. We expect 600 this year, and a lot of international delegates. And we want to create Norway also as a hub where they are coming to get competence and to see how we are building this. At this conference, there will be 2 days. First, a market day, where we have a lot of market houses for each of some of the international market, and we have a supply chain day. We are going into this the technology, going into the port and infrastructure, and etc. So at the floatingwinddays.com, you will find more information about that. I will also go into a report we made, if I have some more minutes, or Menon made last spring, about the number of employees you can have now in floating wind. They looked into the market size, and into the studies, and they looked into the number of possible work, and they have several scenarios. They have 2 scenarios for market size. One with a 5% market share for Norway, so more or less the same level as bottom fixed. That's the level if we are sort of not doing, are more proactive than we were the bottom fixed, and a market share of 14% than if we are very proactive and so on. And they also looked into 2 market sizes, 210 gigawatt and 310 gigawatt in 2050. But in the highest scenario, they calculated 52,000 employees in floating wind. And compared to oil and gas, there's about 200,000 in oil and gas. So it's a substantial amount here. Now we are going to some of the Norwegian here, but in this report they stated this is necessary to obtain this 52,000 workspaces. And to sum up, to going into the Norwegian strengths we have now, we have the technology innovation, we have a world-leading test center, we have production facilities along the coastline, we have the offshore competency, we have the HSE culture, and the Norwegian collaboration model between employer and employees. And all these are strengths here now we are going into this industry. So, thank you.
Thank you, Arvid. Are there any questions at all before I launch into mine? Obviously, stuff like this doesn't happen without some support. I read a lot about the Scotland, and you mentioned ScotWind, or has been mentioned, and they seem to be going full tilt into offshore wind. Do you feel that the Norwegian government are supporting enough with your initiatives to expand offshore wind in this country, or could there be some more effort?
Yeah, I think honestly that the Norwegian government now is speeding up, but we have been a bit impatient, and we have felt that it has taken a long time. It could be have been higher speed, but now I feel that they are on. But our concern now is that also the government and NVE and all the government system has enough of capacity, because there will be a lot in the consent and the environmental assessments now which should be done, and all these there will be needed a lot of capacity also in this system. So it's important that there are enough employees there as well, and that's a concern, because we have learned something from the Met Center, is that it has taken much more time than we expected. It took 2 years to get the consent for 4 new places. And when we then are going to Utsira Nord, southern North Sea, where it's really complicated with 50, 100 to 150 units, and much more also conflicts and like that, it's much more complicated. So we are a bit concerned about that.
Okay, thank you very much. I always remember being involved in wind farms over in the UK in the early days, 2011 and 12, and there was a very, very steep learning curve. Are you looking into more efficient ways of doing things as well? I mean, that there is a learning curve that exists in any new industry. So is that part of you're looking at new ideas, but you're looking at you're looking at 10 years ahead. I think that may be the part that may be the case with some of your technology there. But this is a continual process for you guys, I presume?
Yes, I agree. And this takes a lot of time also. We hope that the Utsira Nord should be in operation 2028 to 2030 sometime. Depends on. We hope that the government can do some process in parallel and save some time. But that's also the case in the other countries. So I think Norway, if we are doing things right now, we are in position to be a leader in floating wind as well. But we need to speed up now. Yeah.
And keep the momentum going. Okay, thank you very much. I think I'll. Oh no, sorry, Cecilia. Just this one question, and then we'll move on.
Thank you. I'm Cecilia from NPF and also with CCB Subsea. What do you think is the most sort of critical limitation with regards, without the politics now, but for the industry? What will be the sort of limitation to be able to deliver that many projects? Will it be like financial or resources or material? What do you think?
Yeah, it's also can be a problem with the supply chain and the number of people and also the material. But I don't think I have a very good answer on this. But I think we must prepare. We need to build up competency now, and we also need to build up sites, and we need to prepare for. But there might be also some constraints there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, Arvid. Okay, so the three Norwegians did their presentations in English. The one Englishman's going to do his in Norwegian. Is that not right? Well, I did understand your email. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to welcome Al. I've known Al for quite a while. So Al Romson from Deep Ocean is going to do the last presentation for this evening. And I can't remember what your title is. It was quite a long one, but you can come up to the stage now. You don't have to keep sitting down. Cheers, man.
Great. Superb. Well, good evening, and thank you for NOSP, first of all, for asking me at very short notice to give this presentation. It was nice getting this together. And, yeah, it's a bit of a hurry. But no, it's good to get the opportunity to present about this tonight, and hope keep you focused for this last presentation after your time in here tonight. So let's get going. So, yeah, the focus of this presentation is switching maybe a little bit. There's been something said about this already. I'm not going to cover anything about birds. It's more things below the surface, things that swim and float. So the subject is about environmental surveys and requirements for these and what we're looking at in this area. And this picture here that I used as a first picture, I actually took this out the window of a flight across the UK, and I was staggered when I was looking at the flight at how many turbines there actually were. You know, it's becoming a very big industry, and it's only going to get a lot bigger. So I think this environmental part is becoming of increased importance. So first off, I was potentially planning this with a counterpart in Aquaplan Neva, who we've struck a partnership agreement with, but he's unable to be here tonight, Lionel Camus. He's just took a flight from Tromsø to Oslo, so it's not so convenient to come to Bergen. But we've struck this partnership in working with these guys, and I'll say a bit more about this, and this is enabling us to offer these environmental services, which we haven't in the past. So it's a bit of a new area for Deep Ocean. Just another picture there of I was up there before we agreed this agreement, and you can spot the bald guy with the pink shirt on. It's not too difficult. So something quickly about Deep Ocean. I think most of you probably know about Deep Ocean. If you don't, we're ocean service provider in many different areas. And one area that I'll focus on particularly tonight is ocean solutions. And competencies, what we work with, it's on the screen there, but it's wide range. Engineering is a big part of this, project management and technology. That's the department I'm in, innovation and technology. And many services, survey, recycling, maintenance, and others. So renewables, focusing on what Deep Ocean are doing in this area. So this shows some of the activity, and most of this is linked to cables. And I'm not savvy to all the work that's been done here. I forgot to mention, but I joined Deep Ocean in July last year, so I'm fairly new to the company. And we've got a renewables department, and as you see with the stats on screen there, there's a lot of cable installed, and there's also a lot of survey done. So my background, I'm a hydrographic surveyor, been coming to these meetings, sessions for a long time. So survey is my sort of interest area amongst others. And Deep Ocean provide a wide range of survey services. I won't run through all these. It's not the main subject of this, but we've got a lot of competency in this area, and shifting slightly into the needs of environmental surveys. So in terms of wind projects, this is just one example from last year. It involved geotechnical operations, CPT testing, and vibrocoring, and using a Pan-Geo system also. And it's a 4-vessel project. Yeah, and you see some examples of the work undertaken within this project. I've not been involved in this, so I won't bluff you into knowing all about this. You can see what's on the screen there, and I'll move quickly on. So, Ocean Solutions. So when I came to Deep Ocean, my role title is called Technology Manager Ocean Solutions. And so I've had to quickly get up to speed of what Ocean Solutions are. So walking into my role, I was given 4 separate hats. And these titles represent those separate hats. And I've had the pleasure of trying on 3 of those hats, but there's one that remains still in the box, which is offshore aquaculture. And we have intentions in this area, but not actually done too much in it yet, but it's on the horizon. But tonight of these areas is environmental monitoring, and particularly for renewables. And there's been some words said about seabed mining already, and that's an area which I've got some focus in, especially I sit here currently in Bergen in an office with Adept Minerals, who we're working with in this area, and deep water operations. This is also quite an interesting area. We're looking at a few different diverse projects in this area. As you see some of the titles there, things for search, potential media productions, and other things in this area. So, but focusing on the environmental side. So in the past, what sort of environmental work have we done? Well, a lot of stuff is related to coral surveys, for example, for Equinor and others, and give some example in line with some of the guidelines there. So we're quite experienced in this side. And the environmental surveys and environmental impact assessments, these have been completed in the past, but we've been bringing in third-party providers to enable us to complete this with specialist sensors, specialist technology, and labs and processing skills. But with our partnership with Aquaplan Niva, we're looking at prioritizing working with Aquaplan Niva to provide these services. And that also filters through to another area we've worked in the past, sonar noise, in working with these passive acoustic monitoring systems and MMOs. But the monitoring as well can be undertaken by some of the vehicles, some of the drones, which Aquaplan Niva are supplying. So yeah, so two areas here in the Ocean Solutions is, as I've mentioned, ocean minerals. So they're quite important to us is our collaboration with Adept Minerals, and we've got a cruise a campaign coming up in April this year in the Mons Ridge area. So there's recently been some funding as part of the Green Platform project for Adept and a wide consortium of partners in this area. So there's a lot of interesting things happening there. especially deploying a FlexiCore system, which we used on this project. And on the renewable side, there's a partnership called the Windstaller Alliance, which is formed, and I won't say too much about this. This may be similar to what has been spoken about in previous presentations, partnership between 3 organizations: Deep Oceans, Aker Solutions, and Solstad Offshore. But with this, we're looking at expanding the array of work we can cover in the renewable sector. Technology development. This is of the technology development we're completing. It's quite wide, and this is just one slide I thought I'd chuck in here because it can be quite relevant to this, what I'm covering. And this is on an autonomous inspection drone. Quite a long project we've been working with now, and Argus has built a specialist system, the Argus Rover MK2, which has already been tested, and it's proved quite successful. And the collaboration in this with VAST as well. And it's moving towards autonomy and inspection and intelligent inspection. So this is something that can be employed within the renewable sector, and also with environmental monitoring. We're able to put a number of different sensors on this to enable us to achieve requirements. So Aqua Plan Niva. If it was a perfect day, Lionel would be here to present details about Aqua Plan, but he's not. So I will try and say something. And there'll be more said about this vehicle, which you see here in later slides. So who are Aqua Plan Niva? For those of you that are not familiar with them, well, it's a non-profit organization, a research organization, like you see on the screen here. It employs 130 people, probably more now, and office in Tromsø. I've had the pleasure of visiting this office when there wasn't much light at this time of year. That's one benefit of being in Bergen. There is at least a little bit more light than Tromsø. Yeah, so it's a wide range of areas they cover, and it's on the environmental side, oceanographic side. See it listed here. I won't run through all of these. Yeah, so what is of interest and linked to the title of this presentation today is these drones, or these surface and subsea vehicles. And these are, for me, it's a bit of a new area to work with. The difference from what I'm used to in USVs and AUVs from previous work, the endurance of these are very high because there's not such high power systems installed on these. But that is one of the main areas for the collaboration between Deep Ocean and Aqua Niva, is utilization of these vehicles for collecting a wide range of data sets. This is a horrible slide, so excuse me, but I was going to change it, but I didn't have time. Too much text is a confusion. So I'll try and tell you what this is all about. So this is just an example of area where we look to collaborate in potentially a glider hub in Haugesund, and an area where we can deploy and combine this, our relative strengths and to deploy these to wind farm sites. And it's like Haugesund is ideally located with Utsira and other planned developments. And we're looking at, in the future, potentially having these drones ready to go, that we can either take them, launch them through small vessels, or also deploy other technologies. So an environmental monitoring side. I'll start off with the why. So I'd like to say thank you to, we've got 2 students currently working with us from University of Bergen, and so they've been quite helpful in providing a bit of background information in this area of the why. Why do we need to do these environmental monitoring surveys? And it's quite obvious to many, but you know, just running through, you know, running through the obvious. The long-term viability of installing lots of turbines offshore, we need to understand what is the impact of this on society, on ecosystems, wildlife, you know. So for this, we need to monitor this. And there's typical environmental impact assessments have been focusing on like maybe a more limited number of areas. But especially with the ascent of floating wind, there's this maybe a higher focus looking at the biological side and the habitat mapping. So in creation of reefs is one area of focus, and I'll expand on this in a couple of slides of a case study in a moment. And also something that's not really touched upon in these presentations, but public relations. It is an important area for continued growth in wind of the public relations side to understand the impacts which wind farms are having, in both positive and negative. In terms of guidelines, there's not too many guidelines. We've found last few days some guidelines from BOEM in the USA, and I've just chucked in here a couple of sentences about the impact relevant to what I'm talking about today, but it's much wider guidelines. Some great reading there when you've got time. And Highwind Scotland, the project I'll talk about shortly, is there's the European framework that is linked to the work that was completed in that, and NOAA has come up with some guidelines as well in relation to habitats and fisheries and other areas. So drones, why use drones? There's a couple of examples there that are sort of keeping this fact-based from previous projects where surveys have been conducted in a more manual way, but there's the outputs of this, the lessons learned, is that it would have been helpful to use drones. And also some recommendations from IMR in Bergen that the type of surveys required to look at habitats and marine life is well suited to drones. And you see, like at the bottom there, they recommend like a 3-year period. So it's quite different to the standard hydrographic surveys that I'm used to conducting, where we go out, collect a data set, job done. Whereas you're monitoring marine life, you need to monitor over a longer period because fishes migrate. It's not constant. It's in continuous flux, and you only get a snapshot over one survey. So projects. This is one example of a project I thought is quite interesting and worth showing you guys what Aquaplan Neve have worked with in the past using this vehicle. So this was basically involving Highwind Scotland and monitoring of marine life fish, in particular if close to the Highwind Scotland development of these 5 floating turbines, as you see here. And so I am telling you the best I can about this, but obviously I wasn't involved in this, so please excuse me if I'm not giving you the best details possible about this. So it's looking at basically fish abundance and distance from the turbine itself. And basically these drones were set off from close to Bergen. And if this video works, you can see deployment. Does it or doesn't it? Yep, it does. Fantastic. Yeah, so you see the size of the drones, pretty small and not very complicated. It's when I was up in Tromsø and had a look at these, I was quite surprised. The simplicity of the system. But yeah, it can be deployed quite easily, so it doesn't require a lot of infrastructure on a vessel to do this, and they're small units. So you see they're deployed close to Bergen and then basically sailed across to offshore Scotland. Yeah, and made news. This is been documented quite well, this project. And you see from here, it took 14 days to sail across, and it took 24 days to sail back. So different conditions, and it's see a system which is not got the same power and effectiveness is like a more expensive USV, but for this type of work it does the job, and it's low cost and it uses low power. So this is showing you like where the vessel was sailing in the area during the period, and this is another video, I think. So if this runs, I don't necessarily need to show you all of this, but yeah, so this is a digital twin, which is up in Tromsø, I think accessible remotely as well. And so as the vessel is in field, we can keep track of where it is, what it's doing through links. And I'll skip forward a little bit here, if that works. Nope, that doesn't work. It's taking me back to the start. So I'll just move on. Right. So the type of data collected is single beam acoustic data, and not really so concerned about the seabed, but looking at what's in the seabed. So it's able to identify zooplankton and schools of fish, and look at the movements and many other factors. See there in this data. I won't speak too much about this. Not sure how much. Yeah, not a lot of time left. So move quickly through this. Yeah, so that's indication of some of the variables we're able to derive from this data collection method. Yeah, it's not a graph that I'm familiar with, so I won't even attempt to explain to you what this shows. Another lovely one that I'm not familiar with. Yeah. So at the end of the day, this is easy. You know, there's a big fish and there's little fish. Yeah, fantastic. You know, so yeah. So basically, looking at the abundance of fish, and it does the job. It's good. Yeah. So yeah, this is a summary of the outputs of this, and yeah. But moving on from this type of data collection, this has been proven of value, and we're looking to find options to use this in the future. And we're looking at expanding upon this. And Aquaplan Niva has been part of a project called BioGlider, where they're looking at using these sea gliders you see in the bottom of the screen there. Two different types of gliders which are used, the Sea Glider M1 and the Slocum. Slocum has thruster on it, so it's got some propulsion, and it's able to hold lines. And yeah, so these can be used for a wide range of data collection. So as you see, like listed here, looking at zooplankton, salinity, temperature, oxygen, turbidity, hydrophone as well, monitoring animals, mammals, and Aquaplan Niva they use the Kongsberg system, the Blue Insight data platform for data processing, visualization, and sharing. And this is, they're quite happy with using this, and it's proven quite effective, and it's also for remote access to these data sets. So future operations for us, we see here is just a artist impression sort of thing of operations in the future. So in the left or right, what is it on your side? The left-hand side of the screen is the USV, which we have a team working on now to produce. I won't go into that tonight. My time's up. But yeah, we're looking at potentially combining operations in the future. So potentially launching vehicles from USVs and combining these three different types of data collection. So we've got the AID, possibly to launch from the USV. That's what we're looking to in the future, or a vehicle to be launched from the USV. And this can be equipped with a wide range of sensors to enhance what's available. So yeah, there's many options we're looking at. So if this is of interest to any of you in this room, please get in touch. I'm keen to speak about that. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well done, Al. I think you conducted yourself admirably, given that you didn't know half of it, or about, I'm implying that. But who's going to pay for this? Is it the developer of the wind farm, or is it something? We're used to doing hydrographic environmental surveys in advance of developments of oil and gas fields. Is it the developer who pays for it?
Yeah, I suppose ultimately at the moment it's developers on the developer, but there could be other arrangements in the future. I've been talking to some people recently and saying like it could be options where, you know, in the early phases, like pre-licensing, where different organizations join forces to have these type of surveys completed to understand, you know, the viability of siting wind farms in a certain area, you know, but yeah, and potentially, I don't know, government, I don't want to go like chuck straws out of it, government funding, research. So there's other areas, but for us, it would be easiest if it was, you know, developers that are commissioning this type of work.
Yeah. Is this something you see as also being continual, not just in advance of a wind farm, but something that through the life cycle to assess damage or differences or changes, etc.?
Definitely. You know, like I say, the species change, and it's good to get a picture from start. You know, that's one of the it ties in with the reefing factor. So if we get a baseline survey to understand what the situation was prior to any development, and then through the life cycle of the development, looking at how this has changed and has it resulted in a reef or has it disturbed patterns of migration or other factors.
Yeah. Cool, thank you. Thanks for getting hydrographic survey in there as well, so we didn't completely lose our direction. So yeah, I've got a couple of questions. John, you've got a question?
Yeah, it's John from Fugro. I was wondering, when you showed the sailing route, 14 days across and 24 days back, 38 days in total, is that part of the evaluation process, or is the intention to launch the vehicle from Norway, let it sail through the whole North Sea?
Well, I wasn't involved in the project, so I can surmise where I'm thinking, but it's I think it demonstrates one part of the versatility of these vehicles and the need, say, removing the need to actually send these vehicles by freight or to send a vessel across to deploy these where they're needed. So, and it's a low cost way to get them across. So I think that itself was a demonstration of the capabilities of these not to get lost, at least.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions down here, and then I think we'll wrap up.
Okay, thank you. Thinking of the first picture with the grid of offshore wind, and do you have any regulations about safety zone for each of these windmills? In the offshore oil and business, it's 500 meters.
Yeah.
So do we have something of that kind? Because that grid seems to be 1 by 1 kilometer.
Yeah.
So no fishing at all in that area, huh?
Yeah, so, well, say I don't have an immediate answer to that one, but I know maybe it was different with this because this was a test project, and the distance that these vehicles were able to get to the turbines itself. But yeah, I'm not going to make assumptions here, as I don't have that exact answer, but I can get back to you on that.
But if you're a fish and you want to live a long life, you want to basically go and live in the middle of them.
Yeah.
So, oh, did you have a question?
Yeah. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Al, for a good presentation, I think. I'd like to put this to the next step, since you are part of the ADEPT cell and you have been here part of Loke, looking at deep sea minerals.
Yeah.
How do you see use of kind of similar tools? I mean, they need to go deeper, of course, to just check out the environment for that 3,000 meters depth before you start to do your mining.
Yep. So with this, obviously with a surface vessel, that's not so relevant given the depths we're working at. But with the gliders, I've been speaking with Aquaplan Niva about options to purchase deeper water systems, which they don't currently own, for monitoring activity close to seabed, because that's obviously a really important part for the mining work. There's obviously a lot of public opposition and concern to mining because of this, but monitoring over longer periods of time to have a AUV on higher for that full period is going to be pretty costly, maybe not the best solution. So if you can use these lower cost solutions with longer endurance, it's definitely a good option. So long as the depth rating is adequate for the areas we're looking at.
Okay, Cheers, Al. Always good to have you visiting. Okay, that's it. Everyone can now go off their separate ways and look for jobs within the offshore industry, because over the next few years, it's just going to go bonkers. So I think I read something recently that I don't think there's been a better time to be involved in offshore. I think that some of the guys here may be more focused towards land, but there's all the planets have aligned, which is how I read it in a recent article. And the longevity of the industry offshore will be a number of years, bowl accounts, and you can see why from some of the presentations this evening. There's just this mountain of opportunities for young people, middle-aged and old. So I think it's I fall into the latter category, unfortunately, now. But I think there's an awful lot to be positive about, a lot of exciting stuff happening, and yeah, I think it'll go away and have a look and research some of what you've heard tonight. And hopefully we can do something similar like this again in a couple of months' time. But I don't think I've got anything more to say other than thank you very much for coming. It's been a great turnout. I'm really chuffed. And I know the guys at NOSP and NPF will be happy too. So don't have to go. Don't feel obliged to go anywhere. I think we want to get out of this room, but downstairs has got a bar. So what else do you need? So thank you very much for coming. If there are any questions, we'll be around for another hour or so. So oh, and I want to take some pictures, apparently, by our chief photographer. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I'm sorry? 4 presenters, please. Thank you.